Hello, everyone. Welcome to Backchat. Welcome to Jaureguiberry, your Yoga for Scoliosis community. And maybe some of you noticed already, I did actually, it's been a very, very long time since I've posted a new practice video. But I did so yesterday, and it was really nice to see so many of you already kind of looking at it and seeing it already before I had even told anyone about it. So that was really nice. So if you do want to check it out, it's a 15-minute yoga for scoliosis practice to release the psoas, so hip flexors, kind of think that sort of region. And it's one of those areas which can get really tight, obviously, and imbalanced with scoliosis as well. So do make sure to check that out. It's on the YouTube channel. If you just go to my latest videos, you will find it basically there. Good, lovely. So come and say hello if you are here live. I can see Samir is saying hello, and Laura is here as well. And yes, we've got a guest today, and really, really excited to have someone who's been working with me for a while and who has been a Shine member for a while as well. And yeah, she will tell you all about her scoliosis story, obviously, as well. And not only does she have scoliosis, not to give anything away here, but also her daughter has scoliosis. So she's got kind of the two ways of looking at this, kind of from the inside and from the more of the outside, and obviously as a parent, which is another completely other perspective as well. And yeah, so I'll be very interested in chatting with her. Liz is saying hello. Hi, Liz. And let me bring her on now. So hi, Karen.
Hello.
Welcome, and thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us today.
It's fine. Good. Looking forward to it.
Good, lovely. So why don't I would love to start with kind of your story, your story with scoliosis. Like when was the word first mentioned in your life, and yeah, what's the background, setting the scene?
Background. I think I was quite late. I was 17, so I can still remember. I'd never heard of it at all. So I was 17. I think I was getting ready to go out one night, and it really was just looking in the mirror thinking, that looks a bit crooked. It wasn't even my back. I think it was my hips. And I can remember going down and saying to my mum, does this look right? And she just had this look on her face as if, I think it was just a mum look, as in, no, it's definitely not right, but I'm not going to let you know.
Right.
No, and then it sort of just went on from there. I mean, I'm 51 now, so it is a little bit of a blur. I can't remember too much. I was trying to talk to my mum about it the other day, actually, and ask her. But we did go and see a surgeon. I can't tell you how many degrees it was to begin with, which is a shame. It would be good to have known that now, maybe.
To compare, yes.
Yeah, I can't. I do remember the words that I was borderline on having to have it operated on. That's what they used. So whether there was a cutoff, I know there probably is now, but it was something along. But at that time, it wasn't even the rods. I think it was, they offered you, they took one of your ribs and used that to straighten your spine. And actually, I did ask my mum the other day why she didn't suggest that I had it done. And she said at the time it was a 6-month recovery, and it really was 6 months of being fed, sitting still, which obviously I know they don't do now. They're sort of, you're up and about as soon as you can, can't they?
Yeah.
That was a decision they probably kind of made for me. And everyone I saw just said, you know, if you can manage it through physio and exercise, then you'll be okay. And that was it. That was sort of end of seeing doctors and off into the world at probably 19, 20. And that was it, really. And I kind of thought I was on my own, and it was just me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This community, internet didn't exist at the time, wasn't put in touch with anybody else, wasn't sort of told how common it was, didn't investigate, didn't look into it, didn't.
You probably didn't know anyone else either.
No, nobody else at all, just thought it was me. But to be honest, I didn't think too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember just probably in my 20s having a bit of backache if I stood for too long at things, as you're standing around doing things. And I just carried on. I've always done quite a bit of exercise in one way. I've always swam, or I've always done something, like to keep active. So I probably just did regular. At that time, it was the 80s, 90s. It was a lot of aerobics. A lot of that type of thing. So I did a lot of aerobics classes, just did regular exercise, really. Didn't think too much about it. Went into my 30s, had 2 children. Didn't really, no issues as such. It was harder, I found, not the pregnancies. I don't know about you. The hardest bit for me was when they were babies and toddlers, lifting them up.
Lifting them, yes. Yeah, kind of the postnatal period, isn't it? Mm.
Getting them out of cot, getting them into the car, getting them out of car seats, push chairs. That was when I started probably to notice it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I did quite a lot of Pilates, a lot of strengthening, probably around that time. Whizzing through it here. On the 40s was probably where I had more issues, as in, I just think getting older, less time to look after myself, maybe.
Yeah.
Bit more stress of running around, doing things. But sort of just carried on with exercise, really. And then I think I found you, where I probably got into a bit more of difficulty, where I think when we got together, they'd sort of diagnosed the lithesis, and there was a few other issues going on. And that's where I think I actually started to feel a lot more positive about things, because it started to find this community and started then to do exercises which were more scoliosis based. Mm-hmm. I think that has what's worked for me recently over the last 2, 3, 4 years. And that's made a huge, huge difference, coming away from just regular exercise to yoga for scoliosis. And then I've done sort of physio courses for scoliosis, and just finding things that work for me.
Yeah, so getting a little bit more specific, probably with your exercises.
Yeah.
So let me just share so that we know what we're talking about, because obviously when we talk about scoliosis, anything from 11 degrees upwards is called scoliosis, but obviously there's a huge, that's a wide range. So Karen did kindly share her X-ray with us. So those of you who are watching this, obviously on the video, you can see it here. So this is. So I had written down a 50-degree curvature. Is that right?
It's around 50. Yeah. At some point, it supposedly went up to 60, went down to 50. I'm not too sure, but I think it's around 50. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a fairly recent X-ray here then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not very clear, and that's just the bottom. But mine is a C curve, so that is the majority of
the curve. So this is really
further up. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we can see here, this is kind of a very typical thoracolumbar curve, and that just means that the peak of the curve is kind of here, where the lumbar spine kind of changes into the thoracic here, which you can see there. So it's like one major curve, and then a little bit of compensation at the top and at the bottom. Is that right?
Yeah, tiny bit, but majority of it is just at the bottom. Yeah.
And so you were saying in the beginning, you kind of first noticed it because something didn't look quite right.
Yeah, it's not really my shoulders. That it was And I noticed that on my daughter as well a little bit. It's just where one side of sort of her hip and mine as well dips in a little bit, which I suppose now is what I know is the concave side. But all these terms, concave, convex, didn't know anything about this, honestly, until 3-4 years. Well, probably until started working with you.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just, I've got one side which is bulky and one side that's really weak. That's how I used to think about it.
And then you think, I need to strengthen the weak side.
Yeah. And I probably was, sometimes I look back and think, I can't believe I did that. And it's with knowledge now, realizing that I don't think I did myself any harm, but I probably could have done things which would have been more beneficial.
Right.
If with hindsight, with the knowledge that sort of I have now, and by that I just mean sort of what areas to strengthen and which areas to stretch and how to get out of pain. So, for example, if I was in pain 10 years ago in the morning, I would have just thought, I need to just go and sit down for the rest of the day, and that probably is what I would have done, but I would not have realized that I do now that, actually, if I just stretch, that actually it's my hamstring that's tight, or it's my hip flexors that's tight. And if I could just do a few yoga poses or stretches for 5 minutes, then my back stops hurting or is not as bad as it was, and you just carry on with the day. So that's just things you learn, isn't it? I suppose that's what I think now. There's just so much out there and so much you can learn that's changed since I was first diagnosed, I think.
Yeah. And that is, if I kind of put myself into that situation, because obviously my scoliosis was never as bad as yours.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's either you're having surgery or nothing at all.
Yeah. And that's what I say when I say it was kind of, we'll talk to you about the operation. I said, no. And that was it. It's, have a nice life.
Yeah, because that it sounds like, if it's bad enough that you would consider a surgery, right, then there must be something else that could be done, or that at least they would advise that you should not do, or maybe other treatments to explore. But they just basically said, come back when you
come back if you need to. I think they may have recommended a few physio exercises, but they were 3 or 4 physio exercises, which probably weren't, they were just exercises for back pain. Probably, I think. They weren't obviously scoliosis related, which I don't think you would have now. It would have been just how to ease lower back pain, or a very general set of exercises
that anyone with lower back pain or whatever would get. Okay.
So that was it. So it's a bit of a flying quick whiz through the decades, but
it really it's a very, very typical journey, right? It's I certainly hear this all the time. We're kind of, and that's why I find it so interesting talking to you, because you now see it in your daughter obviously as well, and you kind of you started as being affected yourself. This diagnosis is kind of put on you. You've got this now, but you just go about your life now. And so for example, for me, it was always something where my mum was kind of nagging me and telling me, you've got to do something. You've got to, fortunately, she was doing that, right? So I can only say thank you. I didn't like it at the time, but she was always saying, you're going to have to do some sort of exercise your whole life.
But I've said the exact sentence to my daughter recently.
Have you?
Almost the same words.
So before we kind of talk about your daughter a little bit more, was there kind of a time when did you understand this? When did this kind of click for you?
So I'm always going to have to do something that I'll always,
Or when you were kind of happy with, not in a negative way, like, oh, I have to do this, but that is actually helpful. Honestly, to do a little bit every day.
I think probably in the last, I don't know what I should say, last sort of 4 or 5 years, where I've come round to it being really beneficial. But that's probably because that's the time where I was in pain, and then I realised that this is what is really going to help. Before that, as I say, I've always done some kind of exercise, but it was more just exercise. Whereas now I realise that I really, really need to do this, and it's really helpful, and I want to do it. I think that's the difference. I want to do it because I know that I feel stronger when I do it, and I know what happens when I don't.
Yes, yeah. And when we started working together, you were, as you mentioned, you were in pain. That was kind of your main motivation to begin with, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to be too dramatic, but I mean, when we started, I was in an awful lot of pain, and I really thought that was how I was going to be for the coming years. I really did think that. And then started to work with you, because my daughter was diagnosed around the same time, obviously then wanted to see how we could help her, and that probably helped me in a way. Yeah, I think that was a bit of a sort of a turning point, just realizing for her how much information there was when I started to look at how we can help her. That was when I really started to look into it so much more than I ever had done for me. I just thought, I suppose I was a bit old school, that was just the way it is, and didn't realize there was so many more people and how common it was, and probably until I really started looking at it for her, I think.
Yeah. So Samir is asking if you're, because I showed you X-ray obviously, and it's the curve is going to the left, and he's saying same for him as well. Does your left shoulder go up? Not really, is it?
No, it doesn't, but I am conscious of pulling it down. So
right. Okay.
But no, you're right. Yeah. As I'm sitting here now, if I just completely forget about what I'm doing, then maybe slightly, but yeah, that's the one I always think, of pulling down. Pulling
down. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And Samir, just to kind of clarify, it doesn't always mean that that's what's happening. If you have a left thoracic or left thoracolumbar curve, it's a little bit like how your individual body adjusts to the curvature. So it could even be that she does the opposite, just because the way that her body is adjusting. So I wouldn't always kind of say every curve that's going this way, that's also happening. I know I sometimes try to simplify this, but I've certainly learned that everyone is really different.
Yeah.
Good. So he's saying I was suggested saying to be conscious to pull my right shoulder down. Yes. And you can see this, obviously. You can look in the mirror, you can see this. You don't need someone else to tell you this, obviously. But I'll just show you the photos that we obviously, so Karen and I were working on Zoom. We've never met, have we?
No, I keep thinking, no, I need to do that.
No, it's quite amazing.
Far away.
It seems like we have, but no, we've been really just working on Zoom, and this is so this was kind of the first kind of before and after pictures I took on the screen, where you can really see a big difference. And just talk to us about this here when you were on the left, when we're looking at this picture on the left, were you aware that that's what you look like, or that's where your weight is, that you were standing this way?
No, I don't think I was aware. I could feel that I was almost sort of collapsing into that left side. I was conscious of that when I was sitting down, but I didn't see it as much as that. So that was quite interesting. Yeah.
And here you really see obviously the pelvis, how it's kind of, it seems to be tilted. And sometimes this is when people get confused and they think they need a leg lift to compensate for this kind of uneven hips. But then you can see how much, she was obviously working on this kind of corrective posture for a while, and then how even actually the hips then start to look when you're just kind of shifting over a little bit with the rib cage, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was 3 months, isn't it? October, November. Yeah. And now I don't really recognize that October 2020. I don't feel I naturally go into that pattern anymore. I just because of what we've worked on and just awareness, I think it is. I don't think I sink. I don't. As I think we said before this, it would be interesting to do now and have a look at that. Yeah,
to see where you are now. Yes, exactly. So it's almost like you've kind of trained your body to be in this new position, in the potential, obviously.
Yeah, and I think you talked about that at the beginning when we started, that is what you can do, and it is true. It takes time, does it? But it's just just now when I was saying, this is the shoulder that I pull down, but I do it automatically now without really thinking about it. When I'm sitting in the chair, I just sort of, and then I make sure I'm not sort of slumped. But that's uncomfortable now. That feels really uncomfortable. It
feels strange, right?
Yeah, it really does. It does. But they're good. They're good.
Good. So what do you say if you give us some kind of, what are kind of the main, if you're wanting, like from your perspective, what would kind of your main advice be for people? What are the things that really made a difference for you?
100% exercise, and I think strength. I feel a lot stronger now, and I think that is just, and it comes slowly. I think the first thing is you can't do anything overnight. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And I know when I go into the physio, there's a chart, and I'm not going to explain this very well. I said most people think they're going to come from here to there. It's probably a common chart, but it's one but the actual journey is kind of like this, up, down, and then eventually you get to the end. And that's very true. So I think it's patience, and if you understand that to begin with, and finding something that works for you, 100% that fits into your life, and because everybody is different and everybody has different challenges, different calls on their time. I find I need to get up early in the morning to do something, because if I don't, and that's just me personally, the day runs away with you. It gets to 9 o'clock and there's no way I'm going to do anything at 9 o'clock at night. That's me, but other people might find it easier to do it at 9 o'clock. So I think advice would be absolutely just find something that fits in with what you're going to do, and then strengthen just core. I think core is a really good one, and that's what I always try and say to my daughter. If you've got a strong core, because that just pulls you up, everything is from your core, and I've just found that strengthening that has really, really helped.
So tell us about your daughter then. How old is she, and when was she diagnosed?
So she is coming up for 15 in June. She's 14 and a half. I think one thing I didn't actually realise is that scoliosis can be hereditary. I was always told mine was idiopathic. There was no known reason. My parents didn't have it. There was nothing in our family. But I did always keep an eye on the children and the amount of forward bends they've had to do.
Just regularly at home. That's what I do with my kids, actually.
Yeah. Every time they go, Mom, it's another forward bend. All the time. And then when I saw my surgeon, who I'd seen or consultant, I'd seen him sort of once a year or once every couple of years for a while, so I did know him. And he just said, bring the children in next time you come, I'll just have a quick look at them. And which he did. He just sort of looked at them and he sent them both off for x-rays, just sort of belt and braces. And hers came back as very, very mild. This was, how long ago was it? Probably when she was around 11 or 12, I think. Very mild. So just keeping, I think, as in it actually wasn't scoliosis. It was 7 degrees. So it was less than 10 degrees, So he said, just keep an eye on it again. Next time she did go in to be checked, again, a little bit like me, you could see that there was something going. One hip was slightly in. He couldn't really see anything, but it warranted enough to have one more x-ray, because obviously you need to be a bit careful. And it had jumped up to, I think it was in its 20s. Yeah, 20s. So quite quickly. And then after that had one more, I think it was an MRI, and it had gone to 30. So in the space of a year. And she's taller than me. She'd obviously been growing quite quickly. So that was last January. She had one x-ray. So it was quite a shock. So just basically started talking about putting her into a brace, and from actually talking about it to doing it, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. She'd had it made. Decision was made. It was literally 10 days of, I know I spoke to you, I spoke to so many people about what the best thing to do was.
And the best brace, right? Because there's not just one brace as well.
Again, that's you don't know what's out there until you start having to deal with these things, do you? And there's however many types of braces, soft braces, hard braces, advice on this one. So yeah, it was very, very quick initiation into that. And she was really good. She wore it, she understood, which not everyone would do. At the same time, I believe, we did quite a lot of research on it, that it's also important to strengthen. And this is, you said, what tips would I have? Tips I have for me would be, and the same for her, I think it's important that she is body aware, so she knows if she's not standing. I'm always saying, don't slouch, don't. And she doesn't. In fact, she's quite good at sitting properly. And we got her enrolled onto quite an intensive physio course. So now she's in the brace most of the time, but she's quite active, quite sporty. So they advise that she wears it 23 hours a day.
Right.
Honestly, she doesn't, but the time that she's out of it, she's active, and they've said that is okay. So there's different schools of thought, but she wears it most of the day, all night. If she's sitting around, it's on. So the only time she's not wearing it is when she's running around doing some type of sport, really. And then we've got her into doing sort of physio exercises, strengthening exercises, 10 minutes a day, and she does that. And to her, it's kind of a way of life, which is what I didn't want it to be a chore, something that she feels she's got to do because she's got something that she needs to. So we have dinner. I was like, well, go and do your physio, and we go and do it. And then she carries on with what she's doing. So it's just trying to keep it quite light rather than this,
Do you think it helped that you could talk about your own experience, and that she could see it on you and see what you're doing about it as well?
Yeah, I think that probably made it less scary for her, because when she looks at her x-rays, it's not really, it's quite scary to see that x-ray. But on her, you can't actually see anything. To the naked eye or to anybody else, you probably wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. So it's just seeing that extra. So I think it did help. And I'm quite open, and I talk to her and say, you know, you really need to strengthen yourself. And if you start now, you won't be in as much pain as I was before I started doing these exercises and really understanding what I needed to do. And I'm quite open, and I tell her, and she thought, yeah. But so I think it probably did help her. And I think me having it and her being diagnosed, I mean, I think I've been able to help her knowing what she needs to do and seeing it on her and sort of helping her understand what areas she needs to strengthen or what she needs to do. But she still has a good moan, and no, I don't want to do
Oh, she is a teenager, right? That's her job, really.
Absolutely, yeah. But more often than not, it's okay, yeah, I'll go and do it. And it's automatic now, which is what I wanted it to. I think that's not a bad thing. If it's just part of your life, you just get on and do it. I mean, you see the physios and it's recommended you do half an hour, 40 minutes a day.
Is that realistic? Yeah.
No, I think if you do that, then personally, I think it's good to do, going back to sort of things you say to recommend, I would say little and often. Doing 10 minutes a day is probably better than doing 40 minutes one day and then nothing for 3 days, picking it up again. So that's what I try and do, and that's what I'm trying to steer her towards as well. It seems to be working. It hasn't got worse over a year, which is good news.
So what type of brace is it? Is it a corrective one, or is it designed to take her in the opposite direction, or is it designed?
No, she didn't need that overcorrection. That's my understanding of it. Her hips are fairly level, so her actual pattern is quite similar to mine.
Okay.
Actually, no, sorry, it's not. Hers is more of an S, so she does have a compensation at the top, so hers is probably more balanced.
Right thoracic, left lumbar more.
Yeah. But her hips haven't really shifted, and I think the overcorrection are if you've got that to sort of overcorrect that aspect of it. So no, hers is it Boston brace? So it's the rigid, hard brace. But I mean, she has had good results, and it's improved it by about 10 degrees. I think she's down to 26 degrees or 27 from 36. But I mean, there's a margin of error in all of those measurements. I know anyway, and it's not just about the numbers. So it's but that's good for her, because if we can do as much as we can to sort of start her off on a good place for years to come, that's all good for her.
So Samir is asking, I was told if my thoracic scoliosis keeps on increasing, it may affect my visceral organs and may result in surgery. Was it the same for her? And it's talking about your daughter. About your daughter wasn't in that range, was she, where it was even talked about surgery, was it?
No. So she's gone into the brace to avoid surgery. So at the moment she's not needing surgery. If it had progressed at the rate it looked like it was progressing, she could have been in danger of possibly needing surgery. That was the issue, because it had progressed quite quickly over a number of months. She was growing quite rapidly. If it had carried on like that, then there was the possibility that she may have needed surgery. So the brace for her was about trying to bring it back down a bit and avoid surgery in the future, which is possibly looking like it's doing. I think, the last time we spoke, it was if it carries on as it is, she's sort of almost out of sort of the danger zone of needing surgery. For her.
She is because she's turning 15, isn't she? So she's probably got a little bit of growing left, but kind of the big growth spurts are probably done, which are always the ones where everyone starts to.
Yeah. And I think that's what they were worried about. Yeah. No, that was, I mean, it was, and that's why I say it was so quick. It was kind of, we need to do this now, because it was changing almost, I'd say dramatic, sort of from 1 week to the next. It was changing quite quickly. Yeah. So that the idea of doing it was just to try and avoid the surgery. But no, like me, she'll always have to do something. It's obviously not going to correct itself, but she will just need to manage it and understand what she needs to do in the future. But just to say, my idea is just to try and build that into her everyday life, and so that it's not something different to everybody else, or just exactly. The day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, brushing your teeth, right? You do this every day automatically, to look after your teeth. Why wouldn't you do something to look after the rest of your body, right?
Yeah. No, and that's exactly how I've explained it to her. I mean, she gets out of bed and I just like, have you done your core exercise? Have you done your core? Have you done that? So she's sort of out of bed, rolls out of bed, does sort of her core exercises, then goes off to school, comes back, has dinner, and then does 10 minutes of the other exercise. And it's just, then goes off and does her homework, so it's just part of her routine, really.
Yeah, I think she's very lucky to have you as well. And, I think you're being a really good role model as well, because, so many times I have got parents that come to me and with their teenager, and they, and I ask, what's realistic in terms of time and investing time and all of that. And then they're like, well, as long as it helps, it's fine. Just give her all the exercises and stuff. And but they don't really understand, right? They don't, because they're not doing it themselves.
No.
And they obviously, as a parent, you just want the best for your child. Completely. I would be completely the same. But it needs to be sustainable, right? And this is why I think it's great that she obviously sees you doing something about this, even though, teenagers are usually a bit like, oh, I don't want to do what my parents are doing.
Yeah, definitely.
But it will go in somewhere in the brain.
Yeah, I think so. I think, some of it sticks, doesn't it? Not all of it. But some of it, sinks in, doesn't it? No, you're right. I mean, she's come away from places with pages and pages of, you had to do this, but nobody's going to do that day in, day out for years to come.
Yeah.
You do have to find something that fits into your life that is going to make you do it at a time, I think, of the day or whenever that you can do it. Otherwise, you're never going to stick to it, are you? I don't think.
Yes, that's interesting as well. So you've done the London boot camp clinic, as I call it.
Yes.
It was 4 weeks, was it?
4 weeks. We did split the 4 weeks up, though. We did 1 week, 2 weeks, and 1 week.
And obviously, so you came out of that obviously with a huge amount of information and tools, right?
Yeah.
So how did you, and you were working with me obviously as well, just before that and during that as well. So I would imagine you kind of came out with like a huge amount of things. How did you then kind of narrow it down to what you are actually going to do?
I think it's just, when you start off, you do think you're going to be able to do everything. And you do start off, it's new and it's different, and you do all of the exercises. But then I think you quite quickly realize the ones that help you, because they're all scoliosis exercises, but I find out if there are some that I can really feel working, some that I feel better afterwards, and some that I know, and then you just let other ones maybe go. And but you've got all of that information. It doesn't mean you have to do all of them on the same day, I suppose.
Yes.
So it's quite good to be able to, you do some for a week and then just get a bit fed up with doing those ones, so you move on and you do other ones. And it's just, Understanding what each one is for is quite important for that course. I think if you can understand why you're doing a certain exercise, what it's designed for, then it's useful to then pick and choose which ones you want to do on which day, because they do give you quite a regimented exercise program, which is fine to start off with whilst you're learning. But then once you realise what they're all for, it's quite good to be able to mix them up a little bit.
Yes, and it's kind of what you kind of summarised what we went through in the practice transformation, obviously, as well, isn't it? Like finding out, well, knowing what your intention is, what you want to do, and then picking and choosing things to do, right?
When you were doing that, you talked about sort of, and it's very similar, sort of mobilizing and then strengthening, sort of stretching and then strengthening. I think it's quite good to do a little bit of each of those into your practice or into your day as well. It's definitely useful. I think one thing, going back to tips and things that I wish I'd thought about before, is sort of touched on it when I get into pain, is just to have a bit of a reset through the day. So have certain time, instead of trying to get through the whole day without doing anything and just being in a bit of pain. I think every now and again, if you can't walk around with your yoga mat in the supermarket, I know, but or a mat. But if you're at home, or just if it's once an hour, just lie down on the mat and do windscreen wiper legs, or just do something to reset every now and again. Kind of gets you through the day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Rather than sort of just trying to go through the whole day and then things build up, or your posture is not particularly good for the whole day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like because that's a little bit. It's integrating your practice, your movement practice, let's call it yoga practice or movement practice, however you want to call it, into your day, right? You do not, as you say, you do not have to physically roll out your mat and light your candles around and creating the perfect environment. Health and safety first, we have to say, with candles. But what stops you from doing a yoga pose here and there during your day, right?
Yeah. I do sneak into a spare office at work sometimes and do a few side stretches, and hopefully nobody notices. But I think it's important just to just keep supple throughout the day and keep moving.
Yeah.
Rather than what I used to do, as I say, I'm just going to have to sit down on the sofa for the rest of the day, because I don't know how to get out of pain or get myself going.
Better do nothing. So
yeah, definitely.
That's not, So how is the because you're still, obviously you've got all the tools, but you're still keeping in touch. You're still a member of Shine, obviously, of my membership. So tell me how that is kind of fitting in, and what do you find beneficial in there?
I think it's really good just to keep in touch or see other people with the same issues, and just, I think, mentally, can I say that, it's just for your own sort of just realizing that you're not on your own. So I think it's really important for that, and to have a group of people that understand what you're going through. I mean, I've got friends who know, and even some of them that I've known for 30 years forget that I've got, because you can't always see it, you're not always aware of it. And I say, just sit down. Why? And you just say, forget, your back hurts, doesn't it? So it's quite nice to be with other people that really understand and are going through the same thing. And then all the practices that you have on there that, I'm quite busy at work at the moment, so it's quite nice to be able to do those in your own time when you do have a moment. And the Wednesday classes are it's great. Just once a week, just have that hour to yourself and do the classes. So it's all really beneficial. It's good. It's really, yeah. No, I'm glad I've stumbled upon everything and you and that. Oh, and it was just sometimes these things you do by accident, don't you? And it's really been beneficial and it's been really good.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Karen. There's someone, Samir is asking if there's a limit for the use of brace. Do you know about that? Do you know if there's an age limit? Sorry.
Oh, an age limit. Well, the advice that we were given for the type of brace is that it's only really beneficial whilst you're growing. I don't know if that's all braces, because there are alternative. I mean, there's soft braces. There's the ones that you were talking about, the overcorrective braces. So I don't know if they're all the same, but my understanding, and I'm absolutely not an expert, so it's something you need to look into, is that a lot of them are used to try and correct the spine or hold the spine whilst you're still growing, because, as you say, that's the danger time where it can get increasingly worse. And once you're grown, they take certain measurements to check that you have slowed down growing or you're fully grown. Then they recommend that there's no need to wear the brace. So once she's fully grown, she's probably got another 9 months or so to wear it. She won't be wearing it anymore, because I don't think it will be of any benefit to her.
Yes. Yeah. Somebody's asking here about inversion table. I did actually speak about that last week, so you might want to go back to that back chat where I was talking about inversions as well. Good. So if you kind of last final summary and advice, obviously you talked about strengthening, how important that is. You talked about practicing little and often. Anything else?
No, I think just relax. I think relax. Because stress is not a good thing for any of us.
No.
If you can, and that's a lot easier said than done. And I think something you touched on definitely recently is listen to what your body needs on that day. I don't think there's no point in forcing yourself to do something that you can't do on that day. You wake up the next day and you may be able to do it, or you'll be feeling differently and you'll do a different set of exercises or something else. So I think, find something that works for you and just listen to your own body, really. Relax if you can.
Oh, I love that. All right. Thank you so much, Karen. That was really, really lovely. And I think, I think people can relate to this. And again, it's nice to have your perspective as both a patient, don't like to use that word, but and obviously as a mother, obviously as well. And looking at it from the other perspective. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah, no problem.
And so we're back next week with Adeline Chung, actually, who's my yoga teacher. So she's going to be on back chat, and then we're going to have a Q&A again the week after. So for everyone who's asking questions now, I'm going to answer some questions in that one, but kind of ran out of time. So Samir is saying thank you, Christine, and Karen. Laura is saying thank you. So thank you everyone for watching as well, and thanks, Karen. Really appreciate it.